All righty. Good afternoon, everybody. It is Tuesday, April 24th. Good to be with you. Marcus Bailey in-house here for the day today. And just wanted to give you an update on, again, the next round for potentially some severe storms heading our way. Let me get all loaded up here. To do this on my phone. I don't have enough monitors to monitor everybody here. So if you have any questions, ask them below. I'll be able to check that out, and then we'll just we'll run through this here. I will preface this by saying that there are a lot more unknowns with this system as opposed to what we had on Friday. All right. Feel free to like, share, helps the Facebook algorithm and all that fun stuff. So you know how that works. Let's start first with where we are right now. All right. We are quiet here. I'm recording this, by the way. I'm going live now at 3:24 Eastern time. For anybody that's watching this recorded later, just wanted to make sure that that you have that. But yeah, so we've got really quiet activity. Indiana, Illinois, Iowa. Iowa's had a couple of severe thunderstorm warnings in eastern Iowa. There were some big hail makers there. You can see those now up around the Chicago area and kind of crossing over into Lake Michigan. Where we're going to be watching is out here in Missouri. We're already starting to see some initiation. That is a severe thunderstorm warning that's just west of Columbia, Missouri, east of Kansas City on I-70. We're going to start seeing some of these fire here as we kind of progress through the afternoon. Now, unlike what happened on Friday, where this was kind of the same area, it was Iowa, Missouri, Arkansas that had all these storms that kind of fired, and they raced to the east and then arrived by late Friday night. These are going to be much more slow with the eastward progression. We may not see any of this activity. In fact, we likely won't see any of this activity until we get into the day tomorrow. And it's going to come in a couple of waves. All right. So I'm going to kind of walk you through that. And there's a couple of different scenarios. So I know it's going to sound confusing. I wish that we had more of a higher confidence on exactly how this is going to play out for Wednesday. But we're going to share you the information that we have. And the best thing to do for Wednesday is just stay alert. I know a lot of people are probably stressed and have some anxiety considering what happened on Friday. But don't live the day in fear. We just want to make sure that you're prepared, and have a way to get to a safe spot if that does arise through the day tomorrow. Okay? So let's talk about the hazards first. I'm going to go kind of big picture first. All right? So nationally speaking, this is the risk for today, the Day 1 Storm Prediction Center outlook. And the bullseye, just like Friday, is in eastern Iowa, northwestern Illinois, southern Missouri, and Arkansas. Those are moderate risks for severe storms. These were areas that actually were under high risks on Friday. And that, we'll see how things kind of evolve, but certainly could be a possibility for that to happen later on today as well. Closer for us, because this is such a slow-moving system, it's not going to be moving. The storms last week were moving like 60 to 70. I think one of the times we clocked one of the storms up to like 75 miles per hour. That's not going to be happening this time. Cold front is much slower, all right? So the risk for today, technically, but it would be very late tonight, overnight after midnight, is a marginal risk for much of central Indiana, the areas of green. So that's a low-end threat. It's not a zero threat, but it's a low-end threat, 1 out of 5. And then the western sliver of Indiana, northwestern Indiana, under a slight risk. That's a level 2, standard slight risk for severe weather. And then you can see that heightened risk once you get into Illinois. Okay? In terms of severe weather threats for the overnight, the wind threat, fairly low for us, and that marginal risk 5 to maybe as high as 15%. It gets a little bit higher when you get out in the western parts of the state. The tornado threat for overnight, all right, because this is going to come in a couple of waves. I want to stress this, specifically talking about the overnight hours. Very low tornado threat overnight, about 2 to 4%. It's not zero, but very low. The higher threat is in Illinois, Iowa, Missouri, and Arkansas, where they have that moderate risk. And then severe hail, about 5 to 15% again in that brown area for much of central Indiana, and then slightly higher for the afternoon, okay? All right, day 2. This will be tomorrow, all right? And we think that we're going to get a couple of waves of these storms for tomorrow. So you have the enhanced risk for storms tomorrow over all of Indiana, Michigan, most of Ohio, eastern half of Illinois, western half of Kentucky, and Tennessee. So it's actually a really large area, and part of that is because there is a little bit of uncertainty on the timing of this cold front. Let's zoom in tight. Again, it's pretty much the entire state. If you're in Indiana, you're under this enhanced risk. On a scale of 1 to 5, it's at a 3. Okay, so it is a slightly elevated risk. What are the hazards? I think all hazards are in play in terms of severe weather. First, the wind, which is going to be the highest percentile. So I think damaging straight line wind is going to be the primary concern for Wednesday. All of the state in that 30 to 45%. That means probability of severe wind 58 miles per hour or higher within 25 miles of a given point. Okay. The tornado threat is a little bit elevated, 10 to 15% in the areas of yellow. So that's basically the northern half of the state. All right. And it extends all the way up into Michigan. I think as you go farther north, you'll have a slightly better chance for tornadoes. The hatched area that you see, those dotted lines, that's what we call a hatched area, means that there is a 10% probability of a significant tornado. What is a significant tornado? EF2 or higher, okay? To put that in comparison, many of the tornadoes that we had that did a lot of the damage on Friday, Sullivan, Whiteland, Gas City, the one in McCormick's Creek Park in Owen County, all were rated EF3s and kind of get you in that range of 140 to 150 miles per hour, okay? Not saying there's going to be a ton of those. I'm not saying there's going to be any of those, but there is maybe a little bit of spin in the atmosphere enough that if some of these get going, that you could get a pretty strong tornado, okay, in that hatched area. And then there's also a decent hail threat in the same zone where we have the higher tornado threat. 30 to 44% in the red. So basically the northern half of the state and the hatched area would indicate significant hail. That would be 2 inches in diameter or higher. 1 inch classifies as severe, which is quarter size. Okay. All right. So I want to show you this graphic here from the National Weather Service that they put out today. And I think, I can show you all the models and how things are going to pan out, but they've been changing so often here and why we have some uncertainty. I think this may be a little more cut and dry on what we can expect for the day. Well, really over the next, 24 to 36 hours. Okay. So there are some what ifs with that, and I'm going to explain that. So obviously you go left to right here on this timeline. We could see storms as early as late tonight. And when we say late Tuesday night, it would be after 10 o'clock. And you can see that it's a conditional threat. What does that mean? We're going to watch and see if the storms that are firing right now in Missouri, and we expect to continue to fire Iowa, Missouri, Arkansas, if those are going to make their way all the way to Indiana in that 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. time frame. There's a lot of projections that we have that say it will not. Okay, so it's a conditional threat. So we're not convinced that that's going to be something that will happen, but it is a possibility, which is why it's worth a mention. It's also important to note that if that were to happen, it can then play a role in what happens later in the day on Wednesday, which I'll get to in a second, okay? So, conditional threat for storms tonight, 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. Many areas are probably going to be quiet, dry, mild, a little muggy, with lows only into the 60s, all right? It's going to be kind of humid, so that's going to help kind of fuel the fire for storms tomorrow. Now, let's go ahead and go into Wednesday. you're going to get probably a couple of waves here. All right. Wednesday morning, early on, I think you get a wave of isolated storms. That's that kind of lower end threat for severe storms. You could get some damaging wind and some hail. I think the tornado threat's pretty low in that very early morning time frame. We're thinking maybe, 6 a.m. to around 9 a.m. All right. Late Wednesday morning, probably from 9 a.m. to lunchtime, is when we could see some scattered storms. This would be our next round that would then maybe come into the afternoon hours. You can see above that, there's a line that says best chances for tornadoes would be in that late morning into early afternoon, or really the late afternoon time frame, okay? But you see in the orange, that's going to be kind of our window for best chances for storms, all right? We believe that this entire thing, in terms of chances for severe weather, will likely be done probably by 7 or 8 o'clock Wednesday night, okay? So we'll have to watch, again, a couple of these waves, all right, for Wednesday late morning and then early in the afternoon on Wednesday, and then possibly into the late afternoon hours as well. Now, I mentioned if we were to get that conditional threat at the very beginning of this timeline, what that would do then is it would delay the onset of maybe the stronger storms for later in the day. It would basically probably shut down any severe weather chance we would have Wednesday morning if we were to get some storms firing overnight tonight, okay? Now, if we do not see storms and that conditional threat overnight, that timeline may slide a little bit earlier. So when you need to be on guard is really at any point during the day tomorrow. But if we get some storms overnight, probably more so into the latter portions of and certainly in the afternoon hours. If we don't get those storms in the overnight hours, I would say that we need to kind of be on guard as early as the mid to late morning hours through the afternoon. Okay. So there's a lot that kind of goes into all of that. All right. I know that's confusing. It's not nearly as cut and dry as we were on Friday. We're erring on the side of caution. We're hopeful that we don't deal with a kind of similar situation. We ended up with 19 tornadoes across the state in Indiana. We're hopeful that we're not going to have that. We do have some spin. It's still leaning more toward a wind event, but you can't throw out maybe some of the things that we've been looking at in terms of that there is going to be some spin in the atmosphere, and that tornadoes are a possibility. All modes of severe weather are a possibility. I see a lot of you in chat. Feel free to ask any questions. Please keep in mind that I can't give you an exact timeline on your town. I don't know if there's going to be a tornado in your town. If you're watching in the state of Indiana, everybody's under the threat for all modes of severe weather during the day tomorrow, okay? And because it's not quite cut and dry in terms of the timing, I just want to I want to caution everybody that you just need to be weather alert throughout the day. Make sure you have a way to get alerts. Don't cancel plans. Don't live in fear. And we're not trying to say any of this stuff to scare anybody. Certainly. We just want to make sure people are alert, aware of what's happening, and to make sure that you have the proper way to get warnings if indeed something were to arise in your area and you would need to take your severe weather precautions. Okay. Real quick, before we wrap things up and I try to get to any questions that you may have. This is the model. Again, this is just kind of reaffirming what the timeline we were just talking about here. So I'm going to go ahead and skip ahead. So this is Futurecast, the HRRR model. And we show this one because it updates hourly. This is at 5 p.m. tonight. I know you guys can't see the clock, but I'll just I'll stop and give you the time frames here. I mean, a lot of the day is fine. I mean, we're starting to see some peaks of sunshine out behind me here. I think we're going to warm up pretty rapidly. We're up to 73 right now. I think 80 is in play today. It's going to be a very summer-like muggy afternoon. Starting to see some of that convection out into Iowa. This is at 9 p.m. And again, that's where your severe weather is going to go. And it's going to race up to Wisconsin. There's a little bit of more activity going on into Missouri. It's going to be more of a late night event in those moderate areas there. But this is what I was talking about here, gang. Okay, so this is 2 a.m. See that? Some of these showers and storms that are making their way through Illinois, Missouri, kind of outrunning the front. And so because of that, losing some steam, and so it just kind of fizzles off. So that's that conditional threat that we were talking about. It doesn't look like it's evolving per this projection. Doesn't mean it won't happen. I think the possibility is there, but this at least particular projection is saying no. So we go ahead and move to when we may see some action. This is at 7 a.m. and kind of this first wave that comes in, 8, 9, 10. I think the morning drive in jeopardy of being soggy, stormy, and maybe a few severe storms here. Again, I don't think in that morning phase you're going to get, a ton of severe weather, but certainly you could have a couple of warnings here and there. And then this is at noon. I think that's, again, this time frame here, when you get close to lunchtime, 11 a.m., noon, and then the early and middle afternoon, that's when you really need to be on guard if this is how this plays out timing-wise. You could see some of these cells starting to fire here, and that's where you can get a few warnings, and even through mid-afternoon. This is the actual cold front passage here. By 3, 4, 5 o'clock, you may get a few discrete cells that rotate, and that's where you'll get a tornado threat there. And then this wants to kind of make this a big long line, very much like what we had Friday. Eventually, once it got into the eastern part of the state and starts to move east. And like I said, this is at 7 o'clock. It's almost completely cleared the state, exception down in the southern portion of the state. So there you go. That's kind of the time frame. I know it's not as clear as what we had on Friday, but hopefully, it looks like I lost the model run there. Let me see if I can get this back here. I think we've got the full run of the 18. So this is what we call the updraft helicity, and this is basically just showing rotation in the atmosphere. I'm going to go ahead and skip ahead to tomorrow because I don't think we're going to have much action here. 9 a.m., seeing some of those chances up there. And anytime you're registering a number, it's noteworthy. Obviously, the higher numbers are even more noteworthy here. And then so we're not seeing anything really in central Indiana in terms of any significant rotation potential in the morning. But by the afternoon, northern Indiana especially, but in that early afternoon phase, in that noon, 1, 2 p.m., seeing a few little tracks there. And then as that cold front is moving through, you're seeing some tracks here. So got to be on guard for that mid and late afternoon hours. Okay. So there's a few differences with this system. And I see a couple of you asking questions. I'll get to you in your second. Let me finish this last thought. That there's a few differences with this system as opposed to Friday's system. You're going to have a lot more lift in the atmosphere, what we call CAPE. Don't ever say it on TV, but CAPE just stands for Convective Available Potential Energy. What is it? It's air parcels that rise freely. You need that to form thunderstorms. The other thing is you're going to have a lot higher humidity, some fuel to drive some of these storms. And you're going to feel that later today already. I mean, we're in the mid-70s. It's going to be a little muggy. You're going to feel that overnight. It's going to just feel a little more like summer here for the day today and then into the overnight hours. And really, frankly, even with the storms and the cloud cover for Wednesday, you're going to feel that because I think we'll probably spend a lot of the day in the low to mid-70s, even very early on in the morning. So those are the kind of the two differences. And so that can really help to fuel some of these storms, even though this isn't as quick of a mover or anything like that. So again, just to recap, there's a lot in play here. Does this forecast have the possibility of busting a little bit? It sure does. And look, frankly, I hope it does. We, meteorologists, we want to be right, but I know a lot of people are stressed out and coming off of the Friday system that was pretty bad for a lot of people. We don't want to deal with another round less than a week away. So let's, what we always try to say is you prepare for the worst and hope for the best. And we'll see how it kind of all plays out tomorrow. Again, I want to stress, don't cancel plans. Don't live the day in fear. Just make sure you have a way to get alerts, right? Weather radios, make sure your cell phones are charged. We saw a lot of power outages. One last thing. Sorry, I'll get to your questions. There was one more thing. I know I said that last time, but like this last system Friday. There is going to be a wind advisory in place for Wednesday. So if it's trash day for you guys tomorrow, or you got, grills outside, or, stuff that's loose, get them in or time down or whatever you need to do, secure them. We do think, as we go deeper into your Wednesday, the wind gusts, not what we call gradient winds, not associated with thunderstorms. So widespread wind is probably going to range in the 40 to 45 mile per hour range. That's not as high as Saturday, but it's still plenty high enough. So it's going to add some additional problems. They'll likely be coming out of the south early on, and then they're going to, as soon as the front moves out by the evening, those winds will turn to the north and west, and it's probably going to stay pretty windy through late night on Wednesday, and then settle down a little bit on Thursday. Okay. All right. Okay. Questions. Mike, that would be Fahrenheit. Okay, so got a couple questions about what is the main threat. So again, just briefly going through that for the overnight. Apologies, it's the wrong graphic. For the overnight, it is, again, it's that marginal risk, kind of a low-end threat. Wind, the primary concern for the overnight into early tomorrow morning. This is going to come in a couple of waves. And then for day 2, everybody's under an enhanced risk, and all modes are in play. Wind is still the highest threat, okay? But and then I think hail and tornadoes are right there. All right. You've got a 30 to 45% chance for wind. So obviously that's the highest threat percentage-wise. 10 to 15% for tornadoes in the yellow. For Wednesday afternoon specifically, and then the hail is actually a little bit higher, 30 to 45% in the red, and there is a hatched area, which means you could have significant severe hail. So, Robert, I'm not going to speculate. There's some ingredients, but I think there's a lot more question marks. I don't know what storm experts on Facebook and what storm experts are on Facebook. I know from meteorologists, there hasn't been any discussion of that. We kind of wait to see how things progress as the thing evolves. There's no prize in, going, saying, yeah, this is going to be, because things evolve, things change. I've already kind of conveyed how much uncertainty there is going into the day, well, really going into the overnight tonight, but really going into the day tomorrow. So we're trying to give you the best scenarios here, but no means is this a slam dunk. It could go either way. You could see it upgraded. You could see it downgraded too. A lot of it has to do with how things kind of play out in the morning, which we won't know until we get there, unfortunately. So, hey Kay, good to see you. What's up, Brett? Hi Tina, thanks for checking in. So I'll stick around here for a couple more minutes and ask any additional questions if you have any. Again, we'll just be watching what kind of happens out west. But again, none of these are going to be really impacting us as they did this last Friday because they're just not going to be moving that quickly here. But it could be another very active day if you're a big weather enthusiast. There was a lot of great live streams that I watched. Coming out of Little Rock, obviously. Memphis, I spent a lot of time watching before I ended up going into the station on Friday. I watched a couple out of Cedar Rapids, Iowa. So, Christine, let me get back to you on that. That might be true. I know there's 19 total in the state. Daniel, like I said, I've been telling everybody, don't cancel your plans. Just because you're going to have chances really all day, I can't really guide you to say, hey, leave a few minutes early or whatever. It's going to be tough because these are going to be isolated and scattered. It's tough to say exactly when it's going to be over, downtown Indianapolis or wherever, so, So yeah, go about your plans and just be prepared that, you might want to consider leaving early. just keeping an eye on radar, depending on your situation where those are at. Okay. Any more questions? We'll try to answer. If you're coming on late, I'll do a really quick recap. Again, I wanted to show this graphic because I just think it's clean. It's great from the Weather Service, kind of on the timeline of what we expect over the next 30 to 36 hours. Well, Christine, look, I mean, we're always concerned about any severe weather threat. I'm sympathetic, I would say, more than anything, because, hey, I mean, I've got kids. I see how it goes. Friday was stressful for a lot of people. People are still, dealing with all of that. And so storm fatigue is a real thing. I've seen it in my 20 years of doing this. And so, we don't want to come in here to scare anybody. That's not our intention. It's just to give people a heads up, make sure that they have a plan, make sure they have the knowledge, and then go about your business how you need to. Dealing with the potential for storms on Wednesday. And again, as I said earlier, you prepare for the worst and hope for the best. And that's where I think we're going to be at. Do I think this is going to be like Friday? I don't like necessarily comparing events. Friday was pretty intense. We sure hope not. There's some ingredients that there is some cause for concern for some nasty storms, but we're hoping that we kind of minimize at least the tornado aspect of that. It's still very much a possibility. And that's why we want to just kind of bring it up. All right. Stephanie, so Stephanie just asked, more likely to have tornadoes in northern Indiana due to the graphic. As it appears right now, yes, but I say that with a caveat. Let me go back to that. That if you notice, yes, it does get lower, but there is nowhere in the state that has a 0% chance of a tornado. So I want to stress that anybody in the state may have that potential of seeing tornadoes. Okay. I just think that the way it looks right now, the dynamics may be looking a little bit higher, that you have tornado potential in the northern half of the state. And in that hatched area, you have maybe dynamics that can kind of keep those going, right? The larger tornadoes that maybe stay on the ground a little bit longer. Not saying that's not a guarantee just because they have a higher percentage in a hatched area. It's not a guarantee that's not what happens. So, but there are some ingredients. I'm not going to go into the deep specifics, but there is a lot that goes into you have to have everything kind of go to get a tornado to form. All right. And, the ingredients are there, but sometimes they just don't all come together at the same time. If I go back to this graphic here, you see there's a certain time frame where you're going to have some of those ingredients all in play. And it's really in that late morning and early afternoon time frame. If we get some storms here overnight, and maybe some of those storms are early Wednesday are particularly nasty, what that does is the storms take out a lot of energy, all right, out of the atmosphere. And so you need the atmosphere to recharge, if you will, to become prime and ripe for storm development again. And so, if you have some of these morning storms that maybe last into mid-morning that really suck out a lot of the energy, your storm development may delay until the cold front comes through. And by that point, that window for a tornado threat may be done. So a lot of this is all about timing. There's just a lot of caveats that really just go into all of it. Okay. So, we're going to, so yeah, anyway, questions. Blaine, Ben, look, I wish we were good enough to say there's the tornado chance in this specific town. We are not. If you are in Indiana, you are under the threat for severe weather. And I think that's probably just the easiest way to convey that. Okay. Christine, do you think flooding will be a factor? It could. Let me see if I have the rainfall amounts here. Because really, tomorrow is our only really good rain chance. I think there is one on Monday, so this would factor part of that in. But Monday's rain chance looked pretty light. The heaviest rain per these projections right here actually are in southern Indiana. Some of the rivers are still pretty swollen. I think they're a little bit better. The rain wasn't particularly long lasting on Friday, thankfully, because they were such fast moving storms that we didn't have any major flooding issues out of the severe weather system on Friday. So, flooding, I would say, is kind of I wouldn't say it's a zero concern, but it's not super high. I will say that some of these storms may be a little bit slower moving. So if you get under some of these and you're going to get several waves through the day, if you get just blasted over and over in the morning and then again in the afternoon and then when the cold front moves through, sure, you could have some flooding issues, okay? So. All right, gang. Well, I'm going to put the wraps on this because I actually have to do a radio update. I'll just continue to update. Again, we'll close on the old SPC graphic for tomorrow. We'll give you updates throughout the evening. Ryan Morris is in the house tonight for any new updates that are coming in. And then I will be in early 4 a.m. tomorrow. Maybe a little bit earlier, depending on how things kind of develop overnight. And then we'll be in there throughout the day giving you updates on how things kind of progress through your Wednesday. Here's the good news. We get past tomorrow night, Wednesday night, gang. The pattern quiets down. Looks like it's going to quiet down for several days. So it's going to get cooler, but Easter weekend looks lovely. Just one lone rain chance next Monday, and it doesn't look anything significant. Overall, you've got several days that are going to be quiet. So that is going to be a welcome sign. Not much wind, sunshine, comfortable, that. So we just got to get through, again, the next, 24 to, 36 hours, and we can kind of ease up a little bit. And the people that are hurting right now and trying to recover from all the damage on Friday can have some good weather to kind of get that done. All right. Thank you, guys. Appreciate you jumping on here. If you have a message for me, if you have a question, I didn't get a chance to do it on the live here, just shoot me a message, and I'd be happy to try to get back with you. All right. Take care. Have a great Tuesday.